Good evening, you're listening to Luscombe's Choice on Resonance 104.4 FM. The subject of this evening's show is Jeff Mills' 1995 mix album, Jeff Mills Live at the Liquid Room Volume 2. The album was unusual in that it was enormously commercially successful, as mix albums weren't necessarily at the time, and brought Detroit techno to a perhaps slightly more mainstream audience. It features a large number of compositions by Jeff Mills as well, and so is a prime example of his abilities not just as a DJ but as a producer and a musician. Well thought out recording techniques were also used to try and capture the excitement and intensity of the crowd. The album is split into three segments 1, 2, and 3, and this week you shall hear a good portion of segment 1, about 7 minutes shy, in fact. I'm afraid I have to do this because of time constraints, but if you could try and retain, if not maintain, the intensity of feeling and anticipation you feel until next week, you can pick up where you left off. Firstly, though, we shall hear from Jeff Mills himself, who spoke to me about the mix and about his philosophy on music. I know it's going back in time a bit, but what was the decision to record Live at the Liquid Room and also release it as an album?
From what I remember, it was quite a while ago. But I kind of remember that I had only been to Japan, I think, 2 times prior to that, or maybe 3 times prior to that recording. And the intensity of the parties were, I think, at a unusually high level. You know, that the people were just incredibly excited, and I wanted to try to capture that somehow, and so I came up with the idea that perhaps maybe I could make some type of virtual type of recording, some type of 3D recording, so that the listener would be able to kind of put themselves in the center of the, it wasn't so much the music, it was the atmosphere amongst the people that I thought was really unusual. And so I wanted to put the listener actually in the middle of the dance floor, so that he would hear, maybe the music in the background, but then mainly the people around them. And so that gave me the idea that maybe I should try to record it in some type of 3D virtual type of thing, and at the time, there just weren't that many available, softwares, and the technology just wasn't there yet, and so I kind of scaled down the idea to just record a live recording of the night, and that's where it came to the finished product.
Yeah, I mean, the audience participation, I think definitely plays a huge part in the sort of atmosphere of that recording. How did you go about the recording process?
Well, what we did, I still had hope that that I would eventually find the technology to be able to master it in that way. So what we did, we put numerous microphones inside of the audience, or just above the audience, way in the back in each corner, just off the stage, from my feed from the mixer, and just as many different places. I think we ended up using about 12 microphones, and so I still have all these recordings from these different perspectives, but we only end up using just I think stereo left and right with a feed from some of the angles, and that was the finished product.
I mean, it must have been quite an interesting selection process, deciding which elements of recorded sound to go with and which to discard, surely.
Well, from the audience standpoint, there are sweet, or we call them sweet points, which are basically the points where the sound from each speaker kind of finds a medium point, and there's where generally kind of navigate to. So so those are those are the points that we took for the for the recording.
Okay, excellent. And I mean, you use a lot of your own material in your sets. Would you say to an extent you're still sort of composing or using them as sort of instruments, I suppose, and composing rather than just sort of knocking out tunes as some DJs do?
Yeah, I mean at that time I was just I moved from New York to Chicago, and I was just beginning to get my studio back in shape, from what it was from New York, So I was really kind of recording and testing at the same time, testing to see, which pieces of equipment that I really needed to keep and which ones to put away based on the sound of the room and everything. So I was testing a lot of material, and I was recording music up until the probably a couple of hours before I left to go to Japan, and I think I-9 was one of the tracks that I made just hours before I had left. And in fact, I took the actual reels, the quarter-inch tape, and requested at the last minute that they have reel-to-reel tapes because I was going to test so much material. And so that was that it was really really captured, I suppose, DJ artists in the motion of using the crowd as indications to create the music.
I did hear a rumor that I-9 was sort of created live, but I mean, was the track entirely finished but before you played it out, or were you adding sort of elements to it from I-9?
It wasn't. Yeah, I didn't think it would be finished before I left, and I just made a rough version of it. But then it worked so well. So then, by the time I got back to Chicago, I thought, okay, this track is done. It's finished. It was effective. In the track, it had these large explosions, these kind of sonic booms in it, And I had anticipated that I at some point I needed to have something to kind of disorient the people, to kind of in a sense, from an acoustic standpoint, to kind of blow the room up. So in that respect, it really worked, and I just thought it was finished, and I could move on to the next track.
And you were talking about as well, sort of, feeding off a reaction from the crowd and sort of building a set to that. I mean, it sounds very much like what people try to do with Ableton now. Do you think programs like Ableton have taken away from some of the artistry and I suppose wizardry of DJing in that fashion?
Well, no. I think that I think it allows for many more options. I think that where some of the problems are is that maybe some of the artists and DJs don't really use those options enough. I'm not against technology. I'm just against the idea of not exploring with it as much as they can. And so no, I just think the more more options we have to be able to create these very unique experiences, I think it's better. It's better for everyone. It's better for the DJ producer. It's better for the audience, for the club, for the concept of the club. It's just better for everyone. But if we don't use them, then it just becomes a waste.
Sure. So, I mean, although, these sort of technologies can sort of facilitate ideas, would you say that technology nonetheless in some way, I suppose, shapes sounds and informs ideas, or do you think it's just purely a vehicle for facilitation of ideas?
Well, I think that what is unfortunately not really explored and not talked about enough in the art form of making music is that there are very important parts of the inspiration and the impression aspects of the music that is never really spoke about. I mean, where do artists get the ideas from to sit down to make music in the first place? And so I always thought that there was never really enough attention to people in the process of trying to live more life so that they can drag those experiences into their music and then relate to other people. Sure. It's like the Bob Dylan effect. You try to live more life so that you could somehow connect with more people with these particular ideas. And the music just becomes, the vehicle, and technology just becomes the tool that you use to be able to make these and present these ideas quicker and more conveniently.
In terms of, I mean, obviously, there is sort of, I suppose, audience participation in a sense in the way the set develops. Do you have nonetheless a sort of clearly defined structure beforehand that you sort of add to and work within, I suppose?
Well, yeah. I mean, my main objective, whether it's DJing or production or making music, is to create either a sound or a sequence or the mixture of sounds, I guess like a prescription, for people to digest through their ears or feel it and feel a different way. And there's never really any correct or any proper equation of how that should happen. And so there brings in the experimenting and the exploring, the outer barriers of music theory and stuff. And so I try to keep focused on over the very on everything I do. I try to look at the end point of where people are trying to be, after they experience these things. And so the sound, the genre of music, where the music is from, and those things are convenient for distinguishing, but I think that it just makes much more sense to focus on what people are trying to do and then help them get to that point. I mean, whether it kind of treads on the treads in the area of science or treads in the area of psychological applications. I'm not quite sure, but music is designed to make people feel particular, in certain ways, and I think that a DJ is part of that process. A producer is part of that process. A physician is part of that process. The psychologist is part of this process, and so I think that it's probably best if you want to last a very long time in this business, if you want to make music from now until forever, one has to understand that inspirations have to come from somewhere other than the dance floor, or other than looking at people, or whether it's funky or not, or you have to look at people and whether you like what you see or not, you have to look at them in a very prejudice, in a very honest way, and then prescribe something, whether you like it or not. You have to prescribe something for these people to be able to reach the level in which they want to reach.
And I mean, do you think since you concentrate on those aspects, which are, I suppose, in some way abstract, but also very universal, do you think that's why, your music, particularly something like Live at the Liquid Room, it endures and doesn't sound, in any way dated, sort of 15 odd years on?
Well, I mean, I when I finish a piece of music, I look at whether its effectiveness, at least on me, and it really has nothing to do with. Well, it does. It has very little to do with what is possible. I mean, I listen to it and decide whether it was enough, and sometimes it can only be just a sound or half of a sound. I mean, something like Changes of Life, for instance, where it was just one sound with a little bit of filter, and it was enough. I mean, I was surely prepared to add, 15 more tracks to it, but in the mix, I had decided that it was enough. It served its purpose, and so I I guess I look at music in more practical view rather than it being something that is a symbol of my expertise or and things like that. I look at it in a practical sense. These are pieces of music are tools, and they're only good when people really need them.
Yeah.
And so it's our job as producers and DJs to remind the people that music has a special quality that enriches life, and that if you can extract what you need out of it, then I would say that you would be living, you would be heading in a much better direction.
So I mean, the job of sort of DJ, musician, producer is almost like sort of shamanistic, I suppose.
Yeah, I believe it's more so that than it is technician but again, I really do have concern that the idea of storytelling or the idea of prescribing sound to make people feel better is not really approached enough in electronic music. I think that I think technology it's so helpful that it actually kind of gets in the way in a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
And the excitement over what is possible just overshadows the idea of what the people are really asking for.
Very briefly, I understand you're very kindly doing a brief mix for my show. Do you know what form that's going to take yet? Could you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can. Let's see, I can do it in MP3.
Okay.
MP4. Yeah.
That would be wonderful. And do you know what sort of form it's going to take?
What type of?
Well, I mean, is it just purely techno? Will there be spoken word or anything? I was just wondering if you had it mapped out yet, or.
No. I have to think about it. But I mean, the way that I'm making mixes now is that there is a story that goes with it.
Yeah.
So that kind of tells me what type of sounds I need to use.
Sure.
So, that's generally it.
Okay, fantastic. Well, listen, Jeff, thank you so much again. It's, it's been a brilliant interview, and thank you very much for your time.